Hello, craft beer lovers. Okay, we're still best beverage, but this week an announcement has come out, which has kind of been a big deal in the craft beer movement. You feel I should address it. Anchor Steam, been around since, and I did take notes, 1896, and they're one of the early founders of Steam Beer, which is a lager yeast, but they do it at ale temperature, so it's warmer. And kind of cost-cutting measure, and actually historically it was a working man's beer, but it was in San Francisco, and probably a lot of the longshoremen and the working people enjoyed it. But that's pre when we're wondering about how it affected the craft beer movement. In 1965, it was about to go under, probably for who knows what time, but this is when it matters because Fritz Maytag bought it in 1965. And yes, the last name Maytag means Maytag. He was a member of that family. But even his fortune, he had to have people come in and help him. But on Colorado and definitely the West Coast, and starting it at 65, he was easily one of the original of the craft beer movement. Taught a lot of people on the coast how to make beer properly, how to sell it, he was one of the original people to really get it started. It came out this week that Sapporo is put it up for sale. So in 2010, Fritz did sell it to a consulting group. I'm sure he regretted it. Like most owners, I'm sure he regretted it about 20 minutes after he did it, but yeah. And then they sold it in 2017 to Sapporo.
And who's Sapporo?
Sapporo is a huge Japanese beer maker.
Okay.
Think Budweiser, but for Japan. Because we did that's one of the ones I've recently done because I wanted to try Japanese lagers. They weren't my favorite. Let's just put it that way. It reminded me a lot of Budweiser, so it makes sense. It's just a mass-produced beer. But with Steam Beer, and actually, believe it or not, they trademarked, which I thought was funny. So Steam is a method of beer, but they categorized the term Steam and trademarked it. So now it's called California Common, but you can't call it Steam. So I'm kind of curious where they're filing. If no one's bought them yet, can anyone call it Steam? Are they going to be able to defend that trademark now? I'm not saying someone should, but it'd be kind of funny to see that work its way through the court system. So it's it's a big deal in the craft beer movement with someone who started long before, ages 65 is ages before there was a craft beer movement, because Carter hadn't even signed into law yet that you could make beer at home. This meant a lot to the movement. And I hope it's a lesson about, because we were even talking about, it won't be named, but someone out of North Carolina who keeps on expanding into other states. Can you overexpand? And also, can someone as big as Sapporo, and there have been a couple, Wicked Weed recently, but Budweiser, InBev has pulled back from them. I think the minute Sapporo bought it, that's not Anchor Steam logo that I grew up with. Doesn't look anything like it. They re-trademarked the logo. You start messing with something that people think historically, I'm trying to think it just makes you feel it tastes a little different because someone big bought them. Well, let's go ahead and taste it. It doesn't, but I think the term I'm looking for is authenticity. And when you get that big of a corporation for historic craft beer, and then you start changing logos and looks, you kind of think, is it still as authentic as it was from what I remember?
Well, and when we're talking about craft beer, we of course are talking about small. Everything originates from a small perspective. And it's very easy then to feel like things lose, as you said, the authenticity
of it.
Yeah,
it smells and bought. It smells. exactly the same that I've always had. It's and it's fun. It's basically an amber ale with a question mark because it's lager yeast, so it's not really an amber ale, but it's an amber hybrid beer. It's got the Northwestern hops, so it's a little minty. I've always enjoyed it. The director probably will not. You could smell it, but I know you ain't gonna like it because you haven't in the past. So, yeah, I saw her shake her head. Yeah, kind of curious. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
You've tried in the past. No,
Yeah.
I personally enjoy it when it's hot and it's summer. It's because it's a hybrid. It's you've got some. It's a little fruitier than a lager, and the hops really do shine through, especially those Northwestern because it is kind of minty. But it's got that lighter finish because it's a lager, so it is a great. It's a great summer beer when it gets warm, and it's amber, so you still get some of those fruit notes. So I guess my advice would be if you want to expand too far and you want someone to buy you, don't. Or be prepared for people who think you're craft beer to kind of give you the side eye once you get that big. And changing branding, I'm certain, does not help at all. So
So are they closing it? Or are
closed
they
chapter
selling
11. It's closed. They tried to, Sapporo tried to sell it and couldn't.
Oh.
And no one wanted to buy it. So first they were going to do California only, and then stop. Fortunately, I was able to swing by Total. I got a 6-pack of this, 6-pack of the Liberty Ale. Good pale ale. Not great, good pale ale. But their porter is just perfect. Their porter is really good. And I like this too. And it's why I want to go ahead and get this out because it's a shame, and it's a big deal. And it's awful for a brand that's been around since 1865, grown from basically going bankrupt in 1965, teaching people how to make craft beer the right way, to now, unfortunately, not even going to be around. It just stinks. So, here's to you, Fritz. Thank you for taking a chance, buying a brewery that probably would not see the light of day, keeping the authenticity and the basically a forgotten style, a historic style that no one had done, keeping it around. You could easily just pumped out a bunch of lager and people would, it might not have hit as well, but you probably would have made a nice little living with it. But you kept what you guys were known for, grew it all the way over here in Kentucky from coast to coast. Unfortunately, just big boys, you can't. I'm sure the people who ran Anchor could not step into Sapporo's shoes and run something that big. There's just two mindsets. So big conglomerates, stop it, leave them alone, unless you want them just to run it and you keep your hands out of it. But I don't know. I've seen enough and know enough about executives that I've met that they don't like to leave things alone. They tend to want to be in charge of stuff, and that's what got them to be where they're at. But sometimes you can't do that for a smaller craft beer place. Like, we know better. We're going to rebrand it, and because the reason I harp on that, I've seen many people online after the news broke out, and this was a big comment, was, well, when they rebranded, they lost a lot of support, and it doesn't look the same. It looks corporate. I mean, it looks like a Bud Light. There's something special about that. So here's to you. Thank you, Fritz. I will. Unfortunately, these are the kind of beers I can't store and cherish for years to come because they'll go bad in about 6 months. So I'll have to drink them in the next 6 months. Darn it. But craft beer movement is fine. I hope this is more of just a cautionary tale. And unfortunately, someone had a monumental player got kind of, be careful who you sell to and be careful how much you're going to give away. keep on drinking craft beer, keep on drinking responsibly, be smart, and thank you guys for the beer you've put out for all these years. We'll see you in a couple weeks. We will get to the regularly scheduled programming as advised. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Keep on putting things in. We'll hit the Country Boy compare in the next week or two versus Big Three. No, I could pick on the Big Three a little more. If I could find Coors Light, everything I've heard, Coors is beginning to be harder to get. Who'd have known? But at least versus Miller and Bud Light, since odds are I'll be able to find lots of Bud Light for some reason. Can't imagine why. But we'll compare it. Cheers, be careful out there, and thank you, Mr. Maytag, for keeping a movement going. We'll see you soon.